Do a quick little breakdown on how to do a mandolin restring. I popped one of my E strings, so what I kind of wanted to make sure as I do is show somebody that, especially one of my students, on how to do things the right way. You know, I don't know, this is what I was taught. So here's a couple, let's say 10 minutes of your life. If you want to watch this, thumbs up, that'd be great. If not, yeah. I always start with the higher strings first, and I go down on those. Hey, come on in. How's it? Once I get all these pretty much down to the lowest, the reason why I start with the higher strings first is if you undo the lower strings and then you do the higher strings, sometimes it has a tendency to like pop the lower ones out. Also, that shift kind of puts a little havoc on your nut and saddle if it's doing that thing. One thing I would definitely recommend is having a trash can nearby, and then once you have your strings like this, a good pair of dikes to be able to cut the strings. If you're a novice at this, I would suggest putting a towel or something underneath your back so you don't scratch the wood. And then as far as like string maintenance, I would say change out your strings every 3 months. Just for the fact that, one, it gives somebody the opportunity to take an eye at your instrument, make sure the neck isn't warping on you, all of your frets are lined up, that you're not getting any buzzing, and it keeps it playing in the best possible way. I know this is somewhat tedious, but I take all of my little strands and I twist them together, and then I throw them out collectively, and I don't like these going everywhere, so I always put them like this. Ta-da! If you're adventurous, a lot of people use these leftover ones after cleaning them to make jewelry and necklaces, which I think is a wonderful idea. I hate to think about how many times I've replaced strings and those just end up in a landfill. Kind of makes me feel horrible about the situation, but what are you gonna do? Try and be constructive in other ways. And then once again, I take these and then I do the same system that I had there. I kind of get them together and wrap them together, so the items themselves just stay together. And then once I have them all wrapped up, I throw it in the pile of strings that I have, and I collect all of them. And then I try and reuse and recycle and repurpose. They're great for clearing out lines, running wire, yada yada. Okay, so once I'm at this point, I take my, not so much this one because it might damage my wood, but I take a cleaner and then I try and get all the little rust and grime off of all of my frets. Looking at my frets to make sure there's no little bit of damage on it. What I'm doing right here, believe it or not, is I'm just getting all of my dead skin scales off of this thing. You'll start to notice once you start clocking hours, you'll bend the frets. Not bend the frets, but you'll indent the frets. I don't know if you can see it on here, but there's definitely indentions here on the strings to get the most use. So, knowing that that's where the most wear and tear in the play is, I'm going to try and play up here a little bit more, work on my inversions. Other than that, I'll probably do a refretting on the whole thing. Why just do one or two? When you do it, try and do the whole thing, or at least the problematic spots, to make sure you're not buzzing out. And then after I do that, what I'm going to want to do is take out my my little buffer here, buff out my magnet cover, the chrome thing, so it doesn't get rust over the top of it, especially here. And then I'm going to switch it to the side that has a little bit of oil in it, so I can moisturize my fretboard. Tell you what, I don't care what you say, this little Ibanez I got off of online was the least expensive one that I could find, and it has served me quite well. The neck has stayed well. The wood doesn't chip or flake off on the sides. The frettings don't extend too far where you hurt your fingers. It's a quite nice little instrument. So the concept behind here is if you treat your instrument with a little bit of love, it will treat you with love as well. Since I've got that going on, I'm gonna take out a little bitty brush in here. If you don't have a brush, you could use your same little thing that you used to do that, to clean it. I'm a weirdo, so I keep the plastic on my my nut for my Allen. Underneath here is a plate with a little bit of rod which goes down in through here. As you can see, this is straight as an arrow, so there's no need to play with that. In fact, in climates like mine, when you have a little bit of temperance with the weather, it's very interesting. You can actually play with the neck a little bit. It could give a little backbone. When you put it on, it'll actually sound great. So you want to kind of make sure you remember which way the bridge goes. I didn't put it on here. It's a floating bridge, which means it comes off and on. So I just want to make sure that the grooves that I have for this one line up with the thicker strings down below and the thinner strings go above. As you could naturally see, when you hold it this way, the thicker string should be on the bottom and then the higher string should be on top. And there is a little bit of indentation, but once you get your strings on here and it's taut, the idea is the distance between your 12th fret and the saddle, the bridge, is going to be equidistant. So when you get this on and you tighten it up and you play a note, bong, and then you play the 12th, bong, for the octave, if it's not completely on, that 12th note will sound a little bit off. When you put your finger over the top of the 12th fret or the 13th fret on top of the fret and play the harmonic, it should be in perfect pitch with that G note. So, here we go. So what I generally tend to do is I'll put my G's on first. Take this strap, put it all the way down here. The concept behind here is you want to put your note, you want to put your G strings all the way down here. That top one, put around the top, and then you're going to wrap it up and around. So concept is that you can do it a couple different ways. If you have just your note right here, it's just a single, which is great. Yeah, there's a couple different ways of doing this too. You want to make sure that however you take your back, your plate cover off, that you're putting your strings on the same way that you put them on. The way I do is when I get up to the first fret here and I got my string all the way through, I put it all the way through the front of the head here, making sure that the string comes all the way out and it's taut, being pulled directly from one point to the other. At that point, I just kind of leave the unit on there and then I string up my other G. You might have this sucker pop over a couple times. It's okay. It is what it is. Now that I've got my G strings lined up, hello. I'm gonna try and line that up so it's a little bit straight. See how those are? Now at this point, I've got the strings in there, got them both on. The notes above it, the D's are gonna go on the two clips above. Those of you who are kind of wondering, these should be on here, but not super tight. You're gonna want to put your G and your G around the two furthest, as you would think. So the first G and the second G, boom, and a boom. Some people like to do one at a time. I don't care either way. And then once I get them up here, the idea is I take these back and I pull them back a fret and a half. They will pop off your fretboard there. And at that point, I want to get my tuner, my string tuner, and just kind of take the nodes and pull these up just a little bit so that you start tightening them around your tuning peg. You're always going to want to hold it like this and take your tuning peg and tune it away from you so the notes start going up through the headstock. When it goes about to right here with the headstock and it pulling back on itself, I pull the notes over the top. Look how pretty that is. And then once those are over the top, then I continue to do it. The reason why I do that is I want to make sure that the string goes over the top when it's winding. One, it looks pretty, and two, it's going to provide the necessary amount of tension between the two so you don't have a slipping or loose string. At this point, I take string, loop it around the back here, and then I put a little tension between the two so it doesn't slip off. This is where it actually makes sense to do one at a time. Over here on the island side, I give it a little shaka here to give the tension, and then down at the point of where these strings are, that's when I start tuning them upwards. So if I put it on the ground here, or on my, it should be on my table right now, but don't have it near me. And then I'm just gonna tune these two so they start filling up that. And hopefully you can see it. Like, woo! Getting a little bit tighter around the back there where it's in the peg. And There are different types of strings. These just happen to be traditional banjo. They don't have the ball loop. If you're kind of in a pinch, you can take guitar strings, the right gauge, of course, and then pop out the ball, the hard nut at the bottom. And the way I do this is I like to make sure that they're tight and super wound. I like to put like 4 or 5 different turns on these just to make sure they're right there, super snug. And then once I get it to a point where it's not kind of like gonna fall off, it's tight enough to keep my thumb in there, that's when I go back and I put that bridge right in there just for safekeeping, and it'll keep these up tight. You can put it right on the G side, but it doesn't matter if it's in the middle, because when you put the other strings on, it's gonna cause a little tension as well. These are the D strings. Let's go ahead and do that. Do one at a time here, rocking it up. This one's gonna go all the way to the inside, pop over the top. Pop it up, pop over the Is that right? Did I do that backwards? This one is the outside note. I did! How funny. Only slow time. So this one goes here. And then that one's gonna need to come back a little bit. So if you're new at doing this, you're gonna experience the same nonsense I'm just doing. Should be doing this, I'm not that much of a novice. And then you're gonna wanna make sure that you have enough tension to pull these guys back. If you are starting off, maybe it does make sense to do these at the same time and line them up with your nut, your saddle, and everything. One, because you really don't want to scratch the unit as well. So pretty. So nice. So great. So awesome. And then it actually is a good time here once you get all of your things on off of the unit to clean it up. You can clean up your body as well. And I would also suggest, if you're going to be cleaning your body, to tune up any of your strings that you might have, or any of your screws. Take a look on the back. If there's anything loose, go ahead and fix it up. Make sure it's nice and taut. And do they get easier for the thinner the strings go? I think so, if I had to guess. Oh, do-do. And I'm being a little rough with the strings too, which is fine. I kind of stretch them out before they get on there, or else when you get in here, you just have way unstretched strings. Also, you kind of want to make sure it's in the right nut, so you're not tightening it and carving out a groove in there that you don't want. I'm gonna go to my A's here. This is the one I broke, which is why I'm doing the restring. And at this point, the A's are going to go on your further peg and wrap it around. It's going to feel a little awkward at first to do it like this in this fashion. However, you will see the point of this. Sometimes you need to wrap it underneath first, then do it on this last one. This is a place where it's actually quite good to have a pair of vice grips or needle nose pliers. Because once you bend the steel anywhere else, it kind of ruins the string. Which is a bummer. Ah, yes. There we go. And just so I don't miss the opportunity, pull this up, make sure that's up there, pull this back a couple of different frets, boop, boop, boop. Pulling it back, you're gonna wind her. Once again, you're gonna wind this so they go up this head and then pull the wire over the top so it's not winding underneath. I want it to be winding over the top of it. If it's not tight enough, you're gonna want to pull it back just a little bit so it is tight. Doesn't matter if you have a little extra slack, it'll all wind up. What you don't want to do is have it pop over the top of it. You want to make sure that that note goes over the top of, or not that note, but this string goes on. Hey, aloha! So, I have a student right now. I'm gonna pause this and come right back to it. How are you? You ever seen a mandolin? You want to come down and take a look at it? This is called a mandolin, and the mandolin itself is a higher strung instrument, and it is used primarily in bluegrass music. I'm gonna put that down here. I can edit you out of the video because you're a minor. Want to put your finger right there? Nice. Not as eventful this weekend. Did you have a good week? Yeah?
Oh,
it's moving. It is. Is it still on the point? Still on there? Yeah, we're good then. See how it's hooked together? I'm just gonna start pulling. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
What's this?
It's a plate for this, so you don't have to see all these silly notes sticking out.
Like that?
Absolutely. So what I'm gonna just push this to the side so you and I can enjoy music. Ooh. So that's called an F hole. There's different types of holes in these, but they're used so we can have acoustics. Acoustics.
How do you play it?
I wish it was tuned up. I would show you. You hold it just like anything else. You hold it like this, and when I make my chords, I make them kind of like this. This is a hard chord, kinda, but I don't play this any other way. And here's what's interesting. You know how all chords have strings and all notes and stuff? This is tuned to a certain chord. It happens to be the same strings as the guitar. It's just flipped. E, A, D, and G. So essentially, you can look at a guitarist player fingers upside down and kind of know where they're at while they're playing. Other than that, it's lots of fun to play it. It has a different feeling to it. It has a higher register because it's so tiny. Yes. Oh, faceplate. Thank you, madam.